As I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you today, there were really too many things, and brevity was not a spiritual gift that I was given, and so I apologize. I'm going to try to stay as close to this time limit that we've set for all of our speakers today. But instead of focusing on one thing, I think that there are many things that we need to understand as it relates to the topic that we're all here to discuss today: influence. And so I want to share with you what I believe to be 12 key insights that are important for all of us to understand and appreciate if we really want to grow and develop and lead our organizations better, to lead our families better, and to lead ourselves well. And so I want to share with you these 12 insights on influence. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you to participate with me for just a moment in a little exercise. Now, this is not going to require you getting up out of your seat, so just calm down, okay? But it will require you to participate, and we won't get started until everybody in the room participates. So what I'd like for everybody in the room to do, please, is just raise your hand for me as high as you can raise it. Okay? All right, excellent. And put it down. Okay, and then let's go up one more time and back down. Okay, great. Okay, and up one more time and back down. Okay, excellent. It does not appear as though anybody in the room has any impingements that prevent them from raising their hands. Okay? So when I ask you this next question here, I expect to see you to raise your hands. Now, there are a variety of folks in the room. We have folks from all sorts of public safety organizations, various different ranks, some from the most senior ranks and some that are on the front line. And so I want to ask you, how many leaders do we have in the room today? How many leaders do we have in the room today? Okay. All right. Well, there's a problem here. You see, I know everybody's arm is working, and what I did not see was every hand in this room raised. And I want to tell you why that is. You see, I think that for many people, when they think about leadership, they think about the textbook definition of leadership. And if you were to look up leadership in the dictionary, you're going to find this definition. And so I think that many people, what they believe about leadership is that leadership is a position. It's a place. It's a title. It's a seat that you occupy. And my friends, I want you to understand the first insight on influence is this, is that leadership at its core is nothing more than influence. If you have influence, my friends, I want you to understand that you are a leader. Now, there are many people who would be considered authorities, that they have a position, they have a title, but authority does not equal influence. Influence is not something that you can demand. Influence is something that you have to earn. There are many people who may be authorities from a leadership standpoint. They may have a position, but they're absolutely not leaders. You know this. And there are some who may not have a position of leadership, and they absolutely are, because at its core, leadership is nothing more than influence. Now, it's only fitting, with us being assembled in a place of worship today, that I share with you a proverb. And so I want to share with you my favorite leadership proverb, and it's this. It's he who thinketh he leadeth and hath no one following is only taking a walk. Now, some of you may not have picked up a Bible in a long time, and you're asking yourself, is that really in Scripture? It's not. It's not, but it's a true principle. You think about it. If you look behind you and you don't have anybody willingly following you, my friends, you are not leading anything. I hear folks a lot of times say, when asking them about their career goals, what do you want to do? Well, they say, well, I want to make rank. What does that mean exactly? And I think that a lot of folks in many organizations, they're pursuing a position. And I've come to discover during the course of my time in leadership is that leadership is not signified by the rank that you wear on your collar. What really matters is who's in the collar. Because at its core, as I said, leadership is nothing more than influence. I want to share with you a little story. This is my friend Tom Dudek. He recently retired from the Sandy Springs Police Department after a distinguished career of 35 plus years. He started out as a prison guard in Attica. He was there during many of the highlights. He worked for the Buffalo Police Department for a number of years. He came down here. He worked for the Atlanta Police Department for some time. And then he went over to the Sandy Springs Police Department. And Tom was one of the senior guys on my patrol shift. And when I first got promoted to a leadership position, I had not been given any leadership training. I don't know if that's been your experience as well, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's my perspective. And so I thought that I got this position, now people are just going to follow me, right? They're going to do what I ask them to do. And I discovered very quickly that leadership was not a position. You see, leadership, as we've been talking about, is influence, and Tom Dudek had influence. If I wanted to get anything done on my squad, it first had to go through Tom. And what Tom had was something I didn't have. I had a position, but Tom had influence. Tom had the relationships with the guys on the team. Tom was a competent officer. He was somebody that they would go to for advice and guidance, and Tom was one of those people that was always willing to lend a hand and help and grow and mentor others inside our organization. So Tom had tremendous influence. And it took me some time to really discover this myself, that at its core, leadership wasn't a position, it was influence. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not up here preaching. I know I'm on a stage in a place of worship, but I'm not preaching to you, I'm talking with you. Because many of the things that I'm sharing with you that we need to do, I've not done those things exceptionally well in my career. As a matter of fact, I am probably the chief sinner of all as it relates to many of these things that I'm sharing with you. But it's learning through those things and growing through those things that really equipped me to be able to share with you some insights today. And so my encouragement for many of you, if you are not yet in a position of formal leadership and you are in hot pursuit of that position, I really want you to change your perspective. I want you to change your mindset. Instead of thinking about pursuing that position, pursuing that rank, I want you to think about, how can I grow my influence? Because whether you have a position or not, if you have influence, you are able to impact the lives of those around you. The second insight I want to share with you about influence is that everyone has it. It's been said that even the most introverted people in the world influence at least 10,000 other people during the course of their lives. We all have it, and you know as well as I do, there are some that probably shouldn't, right? You all know that. We all have it, and one of the things that we need to remind ourselves is that wherever you are, wherever you may be placed, you have influence, and you can become a light to somebody else. And I think that's what we're called to be in this world, is salt and light in this world. And you have that opportunity, my friends, to be a light for others. The third insight that I would like to share with you about influence is that the most influential people are found not in the lofty positions in our organization. The most influential people in our organization are those that are found on the front lines. And you think about it. What people believe about your organization is largely determined by those that the citizens, that the customers are having contact with. It's the frontline officer. It's the customer service representative. It's our 911 telecommunicators. It's that first contact with the community that shapes the perspective of people and what they believe about us and the work that we do. And if leadership is influence, help me understand this, because you all, I'm just going to say this morning, all right, you all look like a very sharp crowd. You're not the most attractive, I'm going to tell you that right now, okay? But you all look like a very sharp crowd. What kind of sense does it make that the most influential people in our organization are not provided with leadership training? I think that we need to make a commitment, no matter where anybody is in the organization, that if we want to create a culture, that we provide leadership training for everybody inside our organization. Another insight that I would like to share with you is that you can influence no matter where you are. And there's a lot of folks that have this misconception that they have to be the boss or they have to be the leader in order to be able to influence what's going on around them. And influence works in 360 degrees. One of the exercises that we do in a class that we teach is we have the participants in that class write down the most admired traits and characteristics of somebody that they respect as a leader, as somebody that they respect as a peer, and somebody that they respect as a subordinate. And I want you to understand that the traits and characteristics that they identify between those three different people are the same. You can influence up, you can influence across, you can influence your peers. You influence in every direction, and so you do not have to occupy the top seat in your organization in order to impact other people's lives. Another insight I want to share with you is that our greatest opportunities for influence, it's not in our positions, our greatest opportunities for influence are right here where we are in this present moment. I'd like for you to think for just a moment about the person who's had the greatest impact on your life personally and who you are today. And when you have that person in mind, I would like you to stand up. And we're not going to get started until everybody in the room is standing. I want you to think about the single person who's made the greatest impact and had the greatest influence on your life and who you are today. It didn't take very long, right? Comes to mind just like that. Now, I'm going to ask you to take a seat when I mention this person. For those of you standing, if it was a mother or father, have a seat, please. If it was a grandparent, have a seat. If it was a brother or sister, have a seat. If it was some other parent figure in your life, have a seat. If it was your spouse, have a seat. If it was a teacher, if it was a coach, if it was a mentor, have a seat. If it was a leader that you worked for, have a seat. And there's always a few people standing for Jesus. Anybody? Okay. All right. What I want to illustrate, my friends, is that the most influential roles we have in our lives is not the positions that we have at work. The most influential roles that we have in our lives are our life leadership roles. It's those close, intimate relationships that we have with those in our lives. And it's a very impactful quote, and it doesn't apply just to us as it relates to raising our children. It applies in all areas of our lives, you see, because our children are going to become what we are. So we have to be focused on becoming what we want them to be. And the same thing's true with those that we lead. The most powerful leadership insight is people do what people see. And it's important for us to understand that if we want people to lead, we want people to take initiative, we want people to be accountable, it first starts with us in our actions. The next insight I want to share with you is that influence, as we know, can be either positive or negative. That's those people that have influence that probably shouldn't have influence. And in every situation, every encounter, I want you to understand that you are either adding or subtracting influence in that interaction with someone else. Leadership follows, and influence follows this continuum. And there are some folks that I'm sure you are aware of and you work for that use force, intimidation, and manipulation to influence people. Those are negative forms of influence if you're not aware of that. And when you influence people using those methods, what you're going to get is rebellion, resistance, and skepticism. If you are a leader and you lead only by position, I want you to understand you're going to have people that are just apathetic in your organization. They're showing up every day for a paycheck. You're not getting the best of their time, effort, and energy. If you want to grow your organization, you have to grow your influence. And as we go up, exchange basically is reward and punishment. It's the system that many of us are used to, and people will work to the extent that they have to provide for their families, and so it's a transactional relationship. And when you have a transactional relationship with those that you lead, what you get is compliance. But if we really want to truly influence our organization, we have to be persuasive, and the most powerful way for us to persuade others is through our personal example. And we are a persuasive leader. We get commitment, and we're somebody that people respect. We get leadership in our organizations, and I think that's something that we all want. Another insight I want to share with you is that you have control over the influences in your life. Whether you believe it or not, you have absolute control over what you allow to influence you and the decisions that you make. You know this to be true. We can't control what happens to us. That's outside of our control, but we can control what happens inside of us. I've heard it said that life is the C between B and D. And B stands for our birth, and D stands for our death, and the C stands for the choices that we make in our lives. Our choices is what influences us and charts the course and direction of our lives and our future. Another insight that I wanted to share with you about influence is that it's a process. It takes time to develop. It's not something, as I said before, that you can command. It's something that you really have to be intentional in creating in your organization. And one of the things that we teach is something that we learned from John Maxwell. It's called the 5 levels of leadership. And if you think about leadership in this dimension, you think about it as a concentric circle, that the more you do these things or you lead from these different levels, the greater ability you have to be able to touch those things around you. And the first level of leadership is the positional level of leadership. You don't have to do anything other than take a test or maybe kiss somebody's behind in some cases to get that position. It can be awarded to you right away. But everything else has to be earned. Permission, what we're talking about here is relationships. And relationships are the foundation of all leadership. You know every one of you in this room are in the people business. You understand that, right? And you cannot be in the people business and not have people like you. It is difficult to be a leader that people do not like. Any of y'all ever worked for one of those? Anybody? Not in your present organization, we understand that, right? But you all have worked for somebody that's just hard to like, you know? We say here in Georgia, bless their hearts, but we know what it really means. And so if we want to grow our influence with people, what we have to do is we have to invest in relationships. And one of the things that I came to know much later in my career is that I was a sharp guy. I understood how to do my job. I was somebody that people would come to as a resource when they had questions. But, you know, I wasn't fully invested in the relational component. And I had a mentor of mine tell me something that was very profound, and it stuck with me to this day, and I want to share it with you. He says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I want you to understand that you as leaders, when you're standing before a group of people, they're always asking 3 questions. And it relates to the spectrum that we're talking about here. The first question they want to know is, can I trust you? Because trust is the foundation of all relationships. They want to know, can I trust you? The second thing they want to know is, do you care for me? Do you care for me? Are you genuinely invested in my well-being? Not just what I can do for the organization, but do you care about me as a person? The last thing that they want to know is, can you help me? Because as a leader, that's what's expected of us. We have to have something to offer our people. They're coming to us for guidance, for advice, and so we have to understand those things, and they align with the permission and the production. The production is the competence component that's absolutely essential. I tell folks that there are 3 absolute essentials in leadership, and if you think of an airplane, the vessel that the wings are attached to, the body of the plane, that's character. That's that foundation of trust that we were just talking about, and one of the wings of that airplane is relationships, and the other one is competence. And you have to be a leader who both cares about your people and you understand how to do your job. It's common sense, but it's not so common. You know it. There may be people that have 30 years of experience, but they've done the same year 30 times. They're not growing, they're not developing, they're not getting any better. And if we really want to grow our influence with others, we can go beyond the production level, beyond the competence component, and what great leaders do, it's different than good leaders. Good leaders have followers, but what great leaders do is they reproduce other leaders. They multiply themselves. They're invested in coaching and mentoring and development. I've heard it said that the growth and development of other people is the absolute highest calling of leadership. And when you've done these things for so long, for so well, you're able to get to the pinnacle level. And the key word at that level is respect, is that people absolutely respect you. And you know those leaders, you've worked for them. Your biggest fear is not getting in trouble. Your biggest fear is letting those leaders down. And wouldn't it be great for us all to be that leader? Now, unfortunately, we have a lot of what I call T-Rex leaders in our organizations. Big heads, little arms. Let me flesh that out for you. Big heads, ego, it's all about position. But when you have little arms, you don't have a lot of influence. You can't touch those things around you that you would like to touch. And I want to ask you a question. Are these things that you would like to see change in your organization? Would you like to see the culture improve? Would you like the leadership to improve? Would you like your folks to be more engaged? Would you like any morale problems? You ever worked in an organization with the morale problems? You cannot influence those things if you are a T-Rex leader. You're not able to touch those things up here. Let me illustrate this. My friend Trent here calls me Carrot Top. He says I got all my props here with me, and I want to share with you just a little something. So, when you are a little T-Rex leader, you can't touch these things right here, right? But when you become a level 2 leader that's invested in relationships, we're getting a little bit closer here, right? And when you become a level 3 leader, somebody who is competent and understands how to do their job, you're getting a little bit closer. When you're a level 4 leader and you're somebody that's invested in the growth and development of your team and you're helping them grow and achieve success, we're getting a little bit further. But when you're a level 5 leader that people absolutely respect, I want you to understand that you're able to impact and influence. And if I was as tall as Trent, I could probably touch the other two, but I'm not. You can touch those things that otherwise you wouldn't be able to in and of your own powers. Another insight I want to share with you is that we don't know who or how much we influence. When I worked for the Sandy Springs Police Department, I was one of the inaugural officers that was part of the startup, and they commissioned a project called the Signature Moments Project. And what they asked all the original officers who worked for this organization to do was to think of a signature moment in their career where they felt like they really made a difference, that they made an impact in somebody's life. And there were some amazing stories there. And I want you to understand the title of the book was not Signature Periods, it was Signature Moments. That there are meetings of just a blink of an eye, and they change the course of people's lives forever. And that's the type of work that we do, my friends. We are in what I say, legacy profession. We insert ourselves, we intrude upon, and we intervene in the lives of other people who need our help. And the influence and the impact that we have in those encounters, they live on beyond us. They live on for generations. The work that you do, my friends, is of the most noble work in the world. Ben Franklin said that no person's useless in this world who can lighten the burden for another. And every day we have the opportunity to lighten the burden for those that are around us, to serve our communities. J.R. Miller said this. I wanted to share this quote here with you about influence. It says that there have been meetings of only a moment which have left impressions for life, for eternity. No one can understand that mysterious thing we call influence, yet every one of us continually exerts it, either to heal, to bless, to leave marks of beauty, or to wound, to hurt, to poison, or stain others' lives. And so I want you to consider, how are you using yours? How are you using your influence? Is the quality of life for those around you, is it better or is it worse? And you can't go back and make a brand new start, my friend, but you can start from now and make a brand new end. I want you to understand that. Next insight I want to share with you is that our words have great influence. Now, is there anybody here in the room that would like to help me out? I've got a crisp $100 bill here in my pocket. I'm not going to ask you to say anything or do anything weird. I just have a little contest, and if you can successfully complete it, this $100 bill is yours. Any volunteers? Cass, come on up. Thank you. I'm just going to leave that here in my pocket here for just a moment. All right. So, let me set my prop over here. Come on over here. This is my friend Cass. Give her a warm round of applause for coming up here today to volunteer for this exercise. So this is a tube of toothpaste, just a regular tube of toothpaste here, right? There's nothing, no tricks about it. It's not doing any magic up here, okay? And what this toothpaste container represents is you. And the toothpaste represents the words that you speak into the life of others. And our words touch hearts and minds. Cass, what I'd like for you to do, I'm going to give you about 10 seconds, and I want you to squeeze as much of that toothpaste onto that heart as you possibly can. All right, let's count down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you. This is the key. This is how you earn the $100, okay? I need you to get every bit of that toothpaste back inside that container. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Listen, I can't give you the $100, Cass, but I do have a nice challenge coin here for you for coming up and being a willing participant here, okay? All right, please give her a round of applause. What I want you to understand, friends, is that your words have power. There are some of you in this room who've had things spoken into your life earlier in your life, in your childhood, and those things still resonate with you to this day. And the same thing's true of us, is that our words have tremendous power to impact and influence people's lives. And once they have been spoken, my friends, it's like that illustration right there. You can't get it back in the container. Since we're at church, I figured I'd share with you a scripture here. In Ephesians, it says, "Let everything you say be good and helpful so that your words will be an encouragement to those that hear them." That's what we need to do with our words. Our words are either tearing people down or our words are building people up. Next to last insight I want to share with you here is that your thoughts influence the direction of your life. I want to share with you a little story. I've done a lot of things in my law enforcement career. With the exception of flying the helicopter and riding a horse, I've done just about everything there is to do in this profession, including unsuccessfully riding a motorcycle. Now, I had a friend of mine who was on motors, and I was assigned to Zone 3 in Atlanta, and he knew that I wanted to get a motorcycle. I didn't know anything about riding a motorcycle, never rode a motorcycle in my life. And he said, "Well, let's go over to Lakewood Amphitheater, and I'll take you out and I'll show you. It's not really that hard." Any of you who have been to Lakewood Amphitheater, you know the parking lot out there. There was a large retaining wall on the right-hand side, and there was a few light poles, but in this parking lot, there was next to nothing in this parking lot for you to possibly run into. And so he's showing me how to work the clutch and the throttle and everything, and I'm getting pretty good at it, and I'm starting to make some loops going around the parking lot. And like many of us do, you know, we get that little cocky twinge inside of us, and I'm coming around the curve where there's a retaining wall about 6 to 8 feet on my right-hand side. And what he doesn't tell me, however, is that the bike is going to go in the direction that I look. So instead of smiling and looking around this way that would guide me into the right direction, I decided I was going to turn around and go this way. The time I turned around, I was maybe 2 or 3 feet from this wall. And as much as I wanted to turn in the opposite direction, I ended up meeting that wall with the motorcycle. Now, thankfully, I didn't get injured. It was low speed. Probably the most painful thing is that both he and I had to walk a footbeat for 30 days for crashing the motorcycle. Now, what's that have to do with this insight here? I want you to understand that there's this concept called target fixation. That whatever you think, that's the direction that your life's going to go. And just like this analogy with the motorcycle here, when we think that we can't, that's the direction that our life moves. But if we think we can, we have the potential to move our life in the right direction. Your life is like a flashlight. You can point it whatever direction you want to point it. And Proverbs tells us this, that we need to be careful how we think because our life is shaped by our thoughts. We're all on a journey. Every one of us in this room, we're on a journey. The journey of life. And you know, many of you, I'm sure most all of you in this room drove here this morning. And the goal of driving a vehicle is to keep it between the lines. Same thing's true in life. But we have things happen in life. We have failures. We make mistakes. Anybody in this room made a mistake before? Anybody? I mean, today. Anybody today, right? How many of y'all made a mistake so bad you hope nobody ever finds out about it? Anybody? All right, let's take a few minutes and just share that with each other. Everybody at your table here. Okay, no, we don't want to do that, right? Life is full of failures. And as it relates to failure in our thinking, we can allow failure to do one of three things. We can allow it to defeat us. We can allow it to define us, or we can allow it to develop us. And the line on the right side is the line of success, and I think that's what many of us are chasing in our lives, is we want to be successful by the world's standards. Is that we want to attain position, we want status, we want prestige, we want all those things that we think really signify success. But you know, and those that have attained those will tell you that it really is meaningless. Success leads to our greatest failure, which is pride. But failure leads to our greatest success, which is growth and development. We need to use our failures as stepping stones in life to get us to where we want to be, but instead of focusing on significance, what we really need to or success, we really need to focus on significance. And significance is different than success, and I want to share with you 3 insights about significance. Significance is about discovering your gifts in life. Every one of you were uniquely gifted with something that your Creator had given you. You all have unique talents and abilities and skills, and we're not all equally gifted. But every one of you in this room have those, and it's your job to grow them and develop and to cultivate them to their absolute fullest. The second key to significance is this, is that you need to recognize those gifts and grow them and develop them to their maximum potential. And the last key to significance is that you need to take those seeds that have been given to you and sow them in the lives of other people, because life's not about us, my friends. Life is about serving other people. The last insight that I want to share with you about influence is that the greatest investment that you can make in your life, it's not in the stock markets, I want you to understand that. The greatest investment that you can make in your life is growing your influence. You see, many people, they're pursuing success, and this rope here represents your life, your existence. And if I could stretch this rope all the way out and you just envision it goes all the way out into eternity, and hopefully everybody in this room believes that there's something after this life here. This red portion of the rope, it represents your life on earth. And many of us, what we focus on is we focus on, doing everything that we can do to enjoy this little moment at the end of the rope right here, right? We are working, we are living for retirement. We say, you know what, I'm going to do all these things so that I can enjoy the worst years of your life, right? When you got all your health problems and all those issues. You know as well as I do that life is a gift. We're not promised the next day. And some of us may never get to this end of the rope here that we are engaged daily in the trivial pursuit of obtaining. We miss this portion of the rope right here. And what this is, it's the impact, it's the influence that we make in the lives of others. And so understand this. I've never seen a U-Haul behind a hearse. Have you? Any of y'all? Never. You can't take the things of this world with you. The only thing of eternal significance is what you leave behind in the lives of other people. It's the only thing that's going to leave a legacy, that's going to leave your destiny. It's the only investment that we should be thinking about. I know I've gone over my time a little bit, and so I want to conclude, however, with a poem. It's called Your Influence, and I'd like to leave it with you as we conclude our time together this morning. And the poem is this. It says, your life will touch a dozen lives before this day is done. Leave countless marks of good or ill ere sets the evening sun. This the wish I always wish, the prayer I always pray. Lord, may your life help other lives it touches by the way. Thank you for the gift of your time, friends.